Hey everybody, it is Chainsaw, and today I'm finally continuing on with the Iron Maiden Discography with, of course, the 1981, the follow-up to the self-titled, entitled Killers. Let's start talking about Killers. So, of course, one lineup change. Dennis, sorry man, you're out of the picture. Now we have Adrian Smith, the legendary guitarist from Iron Maiden, is now finally joining in. And, of course, this is also the last album with the vocalist Paul Di'Anno before he's replaced with the legendary Bruce Dickinson. But anyways, about Killers. So what I found really interesting about this album, going into this album, looking up some info and some, background history about this album, is that, of course, most of the songs for this album was actually written before the actual recording of the debut album. Of course, they wrote a lot of songs before they started recording albums, so they're basically playing catch-up at this point. There's only 2 songs on this album that were written for this album, and basically the rest are just, recording them finally. And on top of that, this album is kind of just forgotten a lot of the times by Iron Maiden fans. Of course, the really hardcore fans know about this album front to back and know everything about it, and that's understandable. But when you look at the back catalog of basically the 1980s of Iron Maiden, people say, well, yeah, I like the self-titled, the Number of the Beast, and they continue on, and then they kind of just forget about Killers. And the band has kind of forgot about the whole album itself, as Wrathchild, the second track on the album, is basically the only song they really showcase live nowadays. Wrathchild is basically it. Everything else is forgotten. And hearing this album, I'm really questioning why that is. Why is it a lot of Iron Maiden fans don't really know about this album, or they kind of just forget about it? And the same thing with the band as well, because the band just kind of doesn't realize this album's around. They basically just took in Wrathchild, and everything else is and to me, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with the whole idea of just forgetting about this album, as it is the second album from the band. I guess maybe it's because of the Paul Di'Anno thing. It's his last album, and they're kind of I don't really know. But for me, it's like listening to this album, I'm going, man, these are some great songs. I mean, they're not as epic and as well known to the Iron Maiden world as the self-titled and, of course, the album after it, The Number of the Beast. But Killers has some great tracks. I mean, they're not really known to people, but they're great songs nonetheless. And I was sitting there going like, well, Wrathchild's a good song live, but of course they could pull out Another Life. I mean, just taking personal preference, Another Life would be cool here live. Genghis Khan, the instrumental, which is of course the second one out of the 2, the Ides of March being the first one, but Genghis Khan would be awesome to hear live. It's a great track. Killers, the actual self-titled, I don't know. I mean, these songs are great. I'm just listening about Purgatory, Drifter, why are these songs not really showcased and well known? I feel like this album is just kind of like the whole situation with Megadeth, with So Far So Good So What, the album in between, Rest in Peace and, Peace Sells, But Who's Buying? It's just kind of like, like we liked the album before it and the album after, but this one, I feel like it's that same kind of situation. But anyways, my personal favorite tracks on the album, of course, is the Ides of March, which is the first instrumental, which is kind of a cool opener. It's definitely a different type of way to open this album a year later after the self-titled. It's just kind of a really melodic-driven short track to kind of just open up this album in a big way. Wrathchild, of course, that epic song that, of course, Iron Maiden does not want to forget and plays live, the only one. And, of course, Another Life, which I felt like was a different type of track. Another Life isn't really, to me, listening to it, it doesn't really feel like maybe it's a 100% Iron Maiden track. Maybe it was something they were just trying to switch it up a little bit, but it's definitely a good track overall. Just listening to it, it has some of the riffs and some of the ideas, and especially the intro, to me, it personally just feels like it doesn't really have the Iron Maiden feel. It's a great track. It just, I don't know, just something a little bit different in a way. I guess they wanted to write. I'm not sure. Genghis Khan, the instrumental, which of course the second one. I feel like this instrumental, it doesn't have a lot going on transition-wise. What really gets it for me is that there's not a lot of transitions, but it's the actual sections itself within that track that really stand out. It's the actual sections. There's not a lot of changes and transitions and stuff, but when it does have a transition into another section of the song, it's really catchy, so I will have to give it that. But of course, my favorite instrumental from them so far going through this discography is, of course, Transylvania, which is off the self-titled. Killers, the actual self-titled, is a great track, and I feel like that was a great choice to make that the actual title track of the album, Killers, because it has a very epic chorus, an epic opening that I feel like it's just like, it's setting you up. It's kind of building up in a sense, but it's building up pretty quick, but it's still taking its time, and so I like that, and I feel like that was a great track overall for the band. Purgatory, and of course Drifter, those great songs, and of course the actual bonus track, which you'll find on the US version, which was Twilight Zone. Interestingly enough, I want to say real quick before we go off into the sound of the band and the production and all that, and a little bit more of my thoughts about this album, is that the most of the writing credits for this album is, of course, Steve Harris, the bass player. But there is some little bit of writing credits, but mainly this is an album that's really generally written by him, and you can really tell that there's a lot of songs with intros that really, it's basically starting off from him. He's starting off the song, or he's coming in with some really, big harmonies from the bass, and of course the bass is really loud, but you can definitely tell this is a very Steve Harris driven album, which isn't bad. Just saying, it's just something you need to notice. Okay, let's just talk about the actual personnel itself and talk about their actual, parts on this album. And then we'll talk a little bit about the production along with that as well. And then a little bit more thoughts of my album at the end of this review. So anyways, Paul Di'Anno on vocals. I feel like that his vocal work and his performance on this album definitely improved from the first album. There's a lot of songs where he's not really going too high. He does go into some high section note-wise for his voice. But he actually sings a little bit lower in his register, what I think is a good thing, because at some moments, I didn't say it in my self-titled review, but it basically came across in the parts where he's hitting notes I'm not really understanding in the self-titled, to where he's singing too high in some sections. But I feel like on this album, he's kind of, not pushing himself too hard, and he's singing these songs with, like I said, a lower register, which I think is great for him, because he's not really pushing himself to kind of just, as hard as he can go and try to go really high. There are some moments where he does that on this album, but I feel like that he's in a better place vocal-wise, and I feel like the lyrical content that he was delivering was great. So it's gonna be sad to see him go, but I think as this is his last record, he did a great job finishing out with Iron Maiden. Of course, he didn't know that, going into recording this, but I feel like he did a good performance. I personally prefer this performance on this album over the self-titled vocal-wise. Just, I'd have to give the edge. Dave Murray and Adrian Smith, the legendary duo, one of the legendary duos. Of course, we got a couple more guitarists coming out. I think it's just one more. I don't know. The good thing is I'm not really, what is the word? Sorry, guys. I'm not really, about the history of Iron Maiden. I'm not really into the history, so I'm kind of just learning as I go. That's what I was trying to get to. Wow. So anyways, Dave Murray and Adrian Smith, the dual guitaring on this album. Man, it is superb. Sorry, Dennis. You were great on the self-titled, but this is definitely a better fit. The rhythm sections, the rhythm playing on this album from both of them are just superb. It definitely has that Iron Maiden feel, and it just feels more heavy on this album, the guitar-wise, and that goes with all the production. We'll talk a little bit about that later on, but it feels like that the guitar playing is just amazing, and they really do have great chemistry. The guitar solos are definitely improved on this album, and I feel like that people really need to take notice on Killers, really to take notice about this album. If you've not really heard this album in a while, please come back. The guitar playing alone is just epic, and it really deserves a second listen if you've not listened to Killers in such a while. But Adrian Smith and Dave Murray did amazing, and these guys really pulled these songs together and really pushed them to the limits with the guitar playing, and so got to give them credit for that, because there's a lot of great guitar melodies, a lot of great guitar solos, a lot of great rhythm sections, and overall just great guitar playing that needs to be heard if you are a guitar fanatic like myself. Steve Harris, of course, on bass guitar. Bass guitar. Wow. I should have took a longer break. Steve Harris, come on. Can we just get through this? Oh, I'm not cutting this. This is all winging it. Steve Harris on bass guitar. Now, of course, like I said, the bass is turned up in the mix like crazy. He's, of course, very influenced because he wrote most of this album, and it was a very influenced type album from him. So, of course, the bass is going to be turned up and all that stuff. But I feel like that Steve Harris, once again, did some great things here on bass. He's not doing too much. He's not trying to be basically the third guitarist, and he's trying to overpower everything else. It's just the bass is turned up in the mix, which is not bad. But I feel like that he's really trying to give the other guys in the band more areas to really, drive these songs home, and really to, push them forward, and he's following along. And there's some sections where he's kind of, the forefront, and the rest of the band is following him, which is fine. But I feel like that, I'm excited to see what Steve Harris is going to do from here, because a lot of the parts reminded me of the self-titled, which isn't bad, but I'm hoping to see that he's going to branch out and do some more different styles of bass playing through the upcoming album. So we'll get to see, but I feel like that he did a good job on here, but I'm excited to see what more he can do besides what he's been doing on the first 2 albums. Clive Burr, once again, man, may that guy rest in peace. He is an amazing drummer, and once again, he gets to showcase his drumming ability on this album. And you know, the guy is just a superb drum player. He really knows how to enhance sections. He really knows how to play with the rest of the band. The chemistry was amazing with him and the rest of the guys. And it's sad to hear once again another album where he is featured and he really gets to, you know, do what he wants to do and basically play what he thinks is right for these songs and all that. And the talent, man, the talent will be missed. And I'm, you know, once again, a high praise. The guy knows how to play, and his drums sound amazing. Now, the one thing I usually don't talk about, but I'm going to mention the guy's name, which is Martin Birch, the producer. They hired him after their disappointment with the self-titled, which I felt like the self-titled production wasn't that bad. It had that raw sound and all that, but if they really wanted to get a better production sound, so they hired Martin Birch, and I feel like the production on this album really has increased a year later after the self-titled. The Killers just definitely has a heavier vibe to it, and the guitars sound heavier, sounds more of that, you know, that typical Iron Maiden sound, which isn't bad. It's what you'd want from Iron Maiden, and you can hear that the drums sound heavier and basically just enhancing those you know, double bass kicks. Well, not in double bass kicks, the kicks and the snares and the actual drum fills and him actually playing. And I feel like that the vocals are definitely more in tune with the rest of the band. It feels like that the vocals are not, you know, kind of, you know, you can clearly hear them, and sometimes, you know, they're kind of in a different spot, and like that sounds kind of weird on the self-titled. But Killers, you can definitely tell that Martin here really did take everything that the band recorded and really put it together and to really enhance this album. So gotta give credit there. The production is definitely great, and of course he's gonna stay with them for a little bit longer, so we'll be talking about that as we go. Anyways, but to end this review, I feel like the Killers is an album that should not be ignored, because it feels like to me that it's been ignored by a lot of people. So if you've not heard Killers in a while, I recommend to the high extent, please go back and check out the album. You know, tell me what you think. Let me know in the comment section below, of course, what's your favorite track on this album? What are your thoughts on this album? What do you think of the transition from the self-titled to, of course, Killers, because of the you know, the lineup change from Dennis leaving after the self-titled to now Adrian Smith now being on the Killers album. So let me know what you think about those couple things. Let me know in the comment section below. But I feel like, once again, Killers is an amazing album. It has songs that are not really well known, but if you don't listen to this album, you're missing out, in my personal opinion. So anyways, guys, that is my review. Sorry for the screw-ups within the video, guys. You know, I'm just trying to get back into the groove of making videos, so hopefully you guys will be okay with the screw-ups anyway. So that is my review. I'm Chainsaw. My score for this album would definitely have to be an 8 out of 10. It's a great album. Definitely check it out if you haven't heard it in a while. So anyways, guys, thank you guys for watching the video. If you liked the video, like the video. If you want to see more, click my name or subscribe to see more. Thank you guys for watching. See ya.